I'm Adam from AMODELOFCONTROL.com, and we're at Infest, well, Stay Infest Mark II, and I'm talking to Shannon from her Leathers moniker this time round.
Hi,
we spoke
thanks
last
for
time
having me.
round under Actors. So
Yes,
how are you?
right.
How's the last year been, other than the obvious?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've been at home still, no touring at the moment, but we've been hard at work on the Leathers EP and the Actors record, which will come out in October. And yeah, I've been tattooing and doing my artwork and taking pictures and writing songs, and yeah, it's been different to be at home for so long, but it's also been like a period of creative productivity as well.
You know, you're not the first person to tell me this,
Yeah.
that this year has kind of been almost a blessing in disguise, in that many musicians who would normally be touring have actually had time to sit down and go, hang on, I can actually, like write something here. If,
Yeah.
if they're blessed to have been able to have the time to do it, that they've been able to come up with new ideas. Although that said, if I don't want to hear, oh, this is my song about lockdown. No, but,
No.
stuff, great.
Yeah.
And Leathers strikes me as very different, obviously very different to Actors, but something maybe escapism comes into it for me, in that it doesn't quite feel like real world.
Yeah, there's certainly like an element of surrealism, or kind of like this the mixture of fantasy versus reality that I kind of play with those ideas a bit in that project. And I think that just comes from when I was young, I was really, I think like the first kind of art movement that I was really into was surrealism, and thinking about this kind of subconscious, like with like the interpretation of dreams, and like thinking about meditation and kind of like these sort of fantastical realms that the mind can find itself in, and where things aren't quite as they seem. And it's like, if you look at something head on, it's like, okay, that's what that is. But if you see something outside of your peripheral vision, you're like, hang on, wait a minute. It's that kind of double take that you're doing to kind of, to ground yourself in that sort of the fantasy versus reality of certain images and things like that.
Well, there's two things that come to mind out of that, and something that came to mind when I was listening to it. And I mentioned when I wrote about it that it kind of almost sounds like some kind of cyberpunk soundtrack. So that works very well with the whole idea of escapism. Of I could well imagine, hey, someone might do Snow Crash eventually, and it sounds like a couple of the songs sound like the kind of thing that might soundtrack parts of that. But also the cover art as well, with you in the leather jacket, looks really cool, and it kind of reminded me of the kind of the idea of the shedding of skin that Karen O does in the Yeah's video to Zero, where she puts the leather jacket on and suddenly becomes this different persona.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think, when I think about someone in a previous interview a couple weeks ago had asked me like where the name Leathers came from, and there is something about like putting leather is like this protective, like this extra skin that you can like put on, and it becomes almost like an armor. So I like that too. Like I like that sort of, you put on a leather jacket and you become like not like a superhero, more like a Batman type superhero, where you're like a mortal a mortal person with maybe some superhero-esque qualities.
So where did the kind of, because obviously there's a couple of styles going on here, and a couple of songs wrong-footed me on the EP, because obviously from the early tracks you'd released and the early versions of the tracks that have been released over the last year, there was definitely a feeling going on, and there's kind of I hate the phrase minimal wave, but it's kind of that kind of minimalistic synth pop idea that was going on with early stuff that you were doing.
Yes.
And the last song completely threw me. I listened to it again this afternoon, and suddenly my brain realized what I thought it sounded like, and it sounded like Curve in their kind of early industrial shoegaze times.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
Was that designed?
You're referring to Missing Scene?
That's the one, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I mean, my bandmate in Actors, Jason and I co-wrote that song together, and yeah, I mean, the Curve record Doppelganger was something that we were listening to. You know, we've always listened to that record. We love that record, of course. So it's probably pretty natural for it to sort of like seep into our subconscious and inform us that way. But yeah, I mean, I don't think we sort of set out to write like a Curve-esque song, but yeah, I mean, we both love the kind of shoegazy guitars, and I suppose, you know, being a female vocalist and doing a song in that genre, it would sort of be natural for people to make the connection between me and it's Tony Holloway, right?
Tony Halliday, yeah, that's
Yes,
the one.
yeah, or Halliday, yeah, sorry.
There's a density about the mix that sounds like Curve. It's not
Yeah,
so much exactly the vocals. It's got this kind of the textures of it to
yeah,
me. I actually put Doppelganger on straight away afterwards
yeah,
when I was listening to
yeah,
it again this afternoon. And there's
yeah.
something really weird in that Debbie, from the guitarist in Curve at that time, is actually a friend of mine nowadays. And
Oh, that's cool.
completely blows my mind that, like,
Wow,
my
yeah,
wife as well, that, you know, she was in a
yeah,
couple of bands we knew from their time and obviously Curve. And
yeah.
nowadays we go out, you know, in London, we'd go out for a drink with her occasionally and be like,
Yeah,
really
that's so
weird.
cool. Yeah, yeah, we're definitely fans of that band for sure. Yeah, the Missing Scene was the first song that we co-wrote together, and we actually wrote it before I joined Actors, so it was definitely like the first kind of completed thing that Jason and I recorded and worked on together. So I mean, you can kind of see an evolution. It starts to get kind of more synth poppy as you kind of get to the newer tracks on the EP. So you can kind of see us distilling and like working out the leather sound together as we're kind of going through those 4 songs, because those 4 songs were released over a period of a few years. So in between like working on Actors records and touring a bunch, you know, we Leathers was not necessarily on the back burner, but it was more difficult to invest dedicated time into recording and that for it. But yeah, I really love how the EP sounds and how it kind of all the songs really work together. They all kind of offer something a little bit different, and yeah, we're really pleased with how it all came together.
And I think you should as well. I think it is a really cohesive EP, even though the songs sound different. There is definitely a kind of a flow to it that works really well.
Yeah.
But in terms of the kind of obvious synth pop that, you know, the kind of clearly you have a grounding in synth pop. What were the kind of the synth pop bands that really got you in the first place? What was the bit? Was there one that pulled you in and kind of got you interested in the kind of the wider idea of this?
I mean, definitely Depeche Mode. They're one of my favorite bands of all time. So, yeah, I think, you know, when the album Ultra came out, I was at an impressionable age at that point. So that record really made an impression on me. And as I started to go backwards in their catalog, sort of from that point, I realized that I actually knew a lot more Depeche Mode music than I had actually recognized at that point. Like, you know, like Policy of Truth and Halo, and these songs were kind of like in my world and kind of like floating around in, you know, whether it be through radio or through like Much Music, which is like MTV in Canada. So I was kind of like, I realized I was familiar with all these songs, and like I actually knew the lyrics, so I'd been hearing them enough to like actually
Osmosis, right?
yeah, exactly. It was kind of just this subliminal thing that was inspiring me. And then yeah, going, you know, back through the catalog, like I realized actually how much of Depeche Mode's music that I knew and was actually like a huge fan of. And just the yeah, there's something about Depeche Mode. There's kind of just this dark romantic feeling through their music that really appeals to me, and the the minor sounds mixed with like the major lifts in the music, and yeah, just the chord progressions are quite unique. You know, when you listen to it, it's not that obvious. It's so the compositions are quite simple sounding. But then when you realize that when people are trying to kind of deconstruct what Depeche Mode is doing and they do it themselves, it's like you can kind of hear certain things that are trademarks in Depeche Mode sound that makes them what they are. And yeah, I think they're great.
The one that comes into my mind straight away is one of the things in my favorite Depeche Mode song in Shake the Disease. Those lovely like vocal those kind of like wordless vocal harmonies they use.
Yes,
they're kind of through so many of their songs, and like you say, you only notice it when people cover them and they don't have them in the covers, and suddenly I'm like, hang on, where's that bit that makes this song also great?
Yeah. And just the way certain chords are mixed with vocal melodies and like the kind of the harmonic content of things is really special to Depeche Mode. And the way that Martin and Dave's voices mix, like, yeah, they're really special to me. So all those things have inspired me for sure.
Do you have a favorite song?
Let's see. I mean, Violator is definitely my favorite record. I love Behind the Wheel. I think that's just an incredible song. What else? Black Celebration is a great record too. It's really hard to choose. It's hard to choose.
I think it is really difficult though, isn't it? Because bands like that you spend a lifetime listening to, you can literally, you could ask me on a different day and I would give you a different answer, but you know, because your brain goes, well, I love this and I love that, and but if I'm in this mood, I want this, and
exactly.
And the only thing they ever disappointed me on was I went to see them live in about 6 or 7 years ago. And it was just a horrible crowd in an arena filled with drunk people who it was, and the set was one of those where they were just kind of almost playing a hit and then indulging themselves and then playing another hit, and the whole set just didn't flow at all. And they had these moments where they were amazing and they were properly life affirming. And then other moments where it's just like, oh God, Martin, get off the vocals and give us another hit.
It's so strange to me that he still seems so like filled with stage fright and so shy after all these years.
Whereas Dave Garner's pretty much died once and he still stood there on the stage looking like a rock god. But then again, they've got nothing to prove anymore. They clearly earn enough on their touring that a new record comes out. It's kind of like AC/DC, right? You're going to hear a couple of songs off the new record, but frankly, they know exactly what everyone's there for. The record is there to facilitate another tour. And, so I don't expect too much out of it nowadays, but, they've given me enough songs for a lifetime, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're just great.
So in terms of going back to your songs then, how's the kind of the songwriting process for the Leather songs then? Is it kind of, do you come up with like kind of the music first? Is there kind of something that will kind of you'll be playing around in your synths and something will come out and you'll be like, hang on, that's something to work on? Or is it much more kind of natural than that?
I mean, I guess what I start with when I'm doing demos is like I'll find like a chord progression. So I have a bass here that I kind of start playing on to try and find the basic chord progression of the song, and then I'll find a drum beat that I find inspiring and kind of put that together just as kind of a start for an arrangement. And then, and then I'll just start to kind of play some synth or sing over top of things to try and find the melodies and that. And then once I have that kind of like a skeleton of an idea, then I'll take that to Jason, and Jason produces the Leathers records or the Leathers tracks with me. So I'll take that demo to Jason, and then we'll kind of we'll talk about what we both like about it or what we think should change, and then we just flesh it out even more. So Jason has his studio here in Vancouver, Jackknife Sound, so it's very fortunate that I can take my demos, which are not in like a produced state necessarily, and can kind of really refine everything in his studio, which is really great to have that, access to that. And then we just refine everything. We put melodies down. We've got synth parts, and he usually plays guitar because he's a great guitarist. So he'll play guitar on the recordings and that. And then, before you know it, we've got a song. It usually happens very quickly. Like we work really well together, and yeah, once I bring an idea and we kind of got the gears turning, you know, sometimes it's only taken us a couple days to put like a, you know, a really nice song together.
Huh. Well, the other thing I've noticed, and this came up, kind of came to mind when I was interviewing Boot Blacks last year as well and listening to their new material, that Jason's got a very particular production style that sounds, it's kind of really glossy and big, but everything sounds like this kind of like really lush sound that he's got going on, and it's kind of almost it's now I've heard a number of releases that he's been involved in. It's clear where that you join the dots, and it's because so many smaller bands have a, how do I say this, to put it politely, a thinner sound, maybe, but maybe doesn't do the band's justice. And I think what you guys are doing, what you're doing both in Actors and Leathers, is really really helped by the production techniques that you use, because it really does make them sound, you know, because some goth, let's be honest, some goth rock, post-punk can sound pretty damn thin.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, Jason is so talented with his production work, and I mean, he does it full time, so he's definitely, you know, it's that 10,000 hours rule. He's probably on the, you know, 50,000 hours by now. He spends so much time there, but yeah, I mean, he's just so talented with, you know, emphasizing the right things in the mix and kind of, yeah, just finding the balance in his mixes that makes the parts shine and lets everything sit well together. And yeah, it's really beautiful to hear a song come together when he's working on something, because it's just, it does have like there is some kind of magic that happens when he's working on things.
I think I've only, you know, I'm no music maker, and, you know, I've been involved in one bedroom production helping a friend do something, some drunken bet agreement. We're like, we will help on backing vocals. Fine. And I still have the recording, and I played it at a live stream the other week for the fun of it, because it was the last one, and it was like, fine, here's the only thing I've ever appeared on. But I've been in recording studios, and it's quite fascinating watching that happen, because you know, the kind of, a lot of the time there is lots of repeated takes, lots of repetition to make things work, and having to scrub out bits that don't work, and lots of people don't see that, and you know, we see the finished article and it's, oh wow, this is amazing, and a number of people I don't think appreciate just how much work goes into making that happen, and the knowledge and the experience that brings that.
Yeah, and you know, even especially with vocals, I mean, we can be changing things up to the last minute. So I'm like rewriting lyrics, or we're rewriting vocal melodies kind of on the fly sometimes. So yeah, sometimes it's in the last, you know, few moments of working on something that something just kind of clicks, and you're like, oh, I need to, like, this note needs to change, or we need to take this note out here, and suddenly the melody becomes like super hooky, or yeah, it's just all these little things that happen, and yeah, suddenly you have a song.
What's your thought on kind of playing live? Did you originally, was there a fear about playing live when you first started kind of being involved in live bands, or?
Not necessarily. I think like I had always wanted to do it, but I was quite a shy singer, so I definitely, like, as I was performing and touring more with actors, like that was something that I grew more confident to do because of the, you know, the proximity to audiences, and just, you know, having to play shows every night and things like that. I grew out of my nerves about that. But yeah, initially when I first started recording and doing that, I was quite shy. I would have problems like projecting my voice enough, because like almost like my voice would just kind of tighten up, and like I wouldn't be able to, you know, project my voice. And I don't have a super loud singing voice, but yeah, it's like you know, the technical aspects of singing are something that I'm always working on, just because it's fun to work on too. But yeah, there's something about it that like I feel better about singing now, for sure.
It reminds me of a young band that played Infest a couple of years ago. I don't know whether it was the same year you played on it, the band Witch of the Vale.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah, and
yeah, I don't think we played Infest with them, but we did play with them in Glasgow.
And they're incredible. like
Yeah.
but she came on stage at Infest wearing like a veil and clearly petrified of the fact that she was, and my understanding is from interviewing her since that she's not confident on stage at all, but she's got this incredible voice.
Yeah,
And it kind of felt like she needed to put this kind of barrier between her and the crowd to give confidence to be able to do it. And it was really fascinating watching it, because she kind of seemed to relax after a little while when she realized that actually everyone really does love what they do. But they, you know, because they sound like no one else in terms of
exactly.
But it was kind of fascinating watching that feeling. Do I recall, I've seen you a couple of times play live with actors, and you play, and I've seen you at least once with your synth kind of side onto the stage. Was that just a space thing, or would you normally, if you had more space, be facing the crowd?
It's probably a space thing.
It's probably one of the small venues. I was just wondering whether that was a legacy of other stuff.
No, that's okay. Yeah. Normally I would be like, you know, pretty head on, or like maybe slightly tilted towards the crowd, but yeah.
It's kind of like one of the reasons I never played music, really played music or got involved with anything, was because I'm, you know, despite the fact that I'm happy doing this, I'm not especially keen on hearing my own voice, and also I'm not sure I could ever stand in front of that many people and do it. And it's kind of, the idea fills me with fear, frankly.
It is something to overcome. I think, like, sort of overcoming my fears about singing or hearing my own voice has definitely been one of the most rewarding experiences, because I've always loved to sing, but I think I just needed to be around the right people to kind of encourage me. And I mean, meeting Jason and all that has really lifted me up, and, you know, it allowed me to believe that I could do it.
Have you actually played live as Leathers yet? Because I'm not sure I've seen that you have.
No, not yet. We when I guess, you know, it's been a couple years now. We did play Missing Scene a couple times for just various like festival dates when we were touring with actors, but we haven't put a band together yet for Leathers. But I think we will probably include Phantom Heart in the actors touring that's coming up. So fingers crossed that we get to do these shows.
I was about to say, I will be trying to make that tour. It's in my calendar to make sure that I can try and make it up to London for that one.
For sure. So we're going to try to do probably Phantom Heart within the actor set. Eventually we will put together a live band for actors, but with COVID and the way things are right now,
So how do you think Leathers will work live then? Do you think it's going to be like a full band setup, or would it be mainly synths? Because I'm kind of curious as to how your thinking goes on this.
I mean, I've definitely been thinking about it lately, because it seems like it's getting closer that we'll be able to perform this project live with the amount of songs that are written in that. But I think it'll probably be a three piece. So it would be me singing, and then we'd have like someone doing programming and bass, synths, and that kind of stuff on one side, and then probably have someone play guitar and like any other kind of instruments. I don't think we would have a live drummer for this project, but it's because it's more dance oriented. But that's kind of the idea right now. We're just sort of working it out.
So you say you've got more songs written. Does that suggest that there's an album due kind of planned at some point?
Yeah, definitely. We're in the process of writing new material, and we'll I think the release date will probably be spring 2022. So our plan is to have the album completed for like end of this year, and then to start the releasing of singles.
I was about to say the usual merry-go-round of preparing for an album to come out, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think that's something I've noticed now that bands are so much closer to, especially in our scene, are so much closer to the people that are listening to the music. We get to hear a lot more about the process of, you know, kind of writing and producing an album and then actually releasing it. And you realize that, you know, albums are often finished way in advance of actual release. It's all about going, the label are like, well, my next gap in the schedule is like, you know, 6 months hence. So
Yeah.
we'll start teasing now, and they're like, God damn it, I want the album, but I know full well that this, you know.
I mean, what we found with actors too, it's really beneficial to, you know, release the singles over, you know, a timeline of like 6 months to a year before the album actually comes out. Just because, you know, if you only release one single and put the album out, like you reduce that time to kind of like generate more fans or more listeners. And so, yeah, it helps to kind of like drag out that content a little bit more so that.
And there seems to be a lot of people really kind of keen on hearing this new Actors album as well. I mean, obviously the really stylish videos you've had for the singles have been kind of fun. And there's for me, there's because I think when we spoke this time last year, I don't think any of this, even the first single hadn't been released by that point.
That's right. Yeah, definitely.
So I think you were teasing about it when we spoke last time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But so I've been really interested in hearing this because there is definitely a different feel to this material to the last album. And I'm kind of really excited about it. The first single, I listened to it the first time, I was like, huh, that's different. And I had to give it a couple of goes because I think my brain was expecting more to kind of follow on from the last album. And I'm like, hang on, there's a change here. Right, so I need to go and recalibrate here and listen to it again. And I'm like, right, okay, I'm totally in with this, and it's great. And I kind of, you as actors, you've evolved. That's much is for sure. When you listen to the original, you know, like Post Traumatic Love and whatever, there's definitely a difference and a kind of an evolution going on. And I think you know, you have to evolve nowadays as a band. You can't sit still. You know, you can't be like the Sisters of Mercy, who basically stopped where they were and then go, right, yeah, we're cool now, we're good, we're not a goth band, honest go, yeah, right, yeah. But you know, but you know, they're stuck in an ever-ending loop, or you know, refusing to release new music, despite the fact we all know what we want to hear. Whereas younger bands like you are coming through with kind of a newer take on the same idea, but it's exciting again. And I think this is, you know, there's the goth post-punk thing has been done to thrashed to death by so many bands over the last decade, and there's so much good stuff out there, but there's also some real formulaic dross maybe, and I'm not going to name names.
You know, it's fine to be inspired by things of the past, but when it becomes so derivative, it sort of loses its charm quite quickly. So I mean, I think with what we try to do with actors is, obviously take inspiration from the music that we love, and but to also inject these like modern elements, whether it be through production or through, you know, synth sounds, or you know, there's like obviously an element of like retro throwback too, but we try to keep it modern in a way that it feels like a fresh take on things. And harmonically, like we've always tried to, you know, have interesting melodies, and to you know, to have the songs be like singable, and you know, we enjoy melody. So
well, funny you should mention this, because I was actually, just before we came on here, I was finishing off the Netflix series This Is Pop. And which has been phenomenal, and I hadn't got around to watching the last episode about the Brill building and the whole idea of, you know, the whole idea of teenagers and how they had to start writing music for a new demographic that had never existed before, and how all these, you know, and how the songs completely changed. But they kind of said that, you know, and Linda Perry was on it, and she was saying about the whole idea of she's trying to do something similar, in that she's writing music for a generation that maybe don't care about what happened at the Brill building, but they still care about pop music, and they still care about the music they listen to. And the kind of the underlying feeling I had for it is that whether we, you know, no matter how much time goes on, there will always be a younger demographic that is into a new style of music. And we don't have to be afraid of going, oh God, is our music dying out? Well, not really, because it just gets recycled and redone, and new ideas come out of it because new eyes get to it, right? And this is what we're doing, you know, what you guys are doing, and what the wider scene is doing is basically exactly what the Brill building people were doing. Is we're bringing out a new style of kind of recycling old styles of music, but making it palatable for a modern age, and reflecting the kind of the problems of a modern age, right?
I think we found that, you know, initially our fan base was in like the kind of 30 to 50 age range. But like now that the songs have kind of been out in the world more, like we've had some really young fans too, you know, teens coming to us to say that they're like super fans, and they're finding, you know, they find out about Actors and they're finding out about New Order and Joy Division, and like, so it's kind of like a gateway to,
I was about to say that kind of gateway discovery when you're a teenager is what possibly the most exciting, now I think about it, is the most exciting time where you can discover music, because basically you're a blank slate. You hear a band and then, but your parents might play you something, you're like, oh, that's dad music, I don't want to know about that. And then it might take 10 years before you suddenly discover this new band and you're like, shit, they're basically listening to the stuff that my dad was listening to, my dad was telling me about. And I had exactly that. You know, my dad loves Tom Waits. And when I was a kid, Tom Waits meant nothing. And I didn't understand it because it sounded horrible. And then I discovered some bands that were in modern alt rock bands in the 90s that were influenced by that. And suddenly I'm like, oh yeah, shit. I listened to Tom Waits, I'm like, oh.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I'm just not going to tell my dad yet, you know. And but you could discover all this, you could find all of these new ideas, and then it might take us years to go back to it. Like my wife's mother is a like massive Leonard Cohen super fan, to the point where Leonard Cohen knew who she was. And she met him on a few occasions. That kind of level of fandom. And so my wife, you know, one of the first questions I got from my wife's mother when I first met her was, do you like Leonard Cohen? The answer was, of course, yes. You know, I passed the first test. And I genuinely did, and I passed the first test. But you know, but my wife obviously for years was just like, no, I bloody hate Leonard Cohen. Of course, we went to see him live eventually on one of his last tours, and we saw him at the O2, and he was incredible. But her mother was hooting with laughter at the fact that her daughter was finally going to see this artist that she'd basically had to deal with all her life. So you know, our tastes change and our styles change, I think, and I think, you know, it's often we can't be gatekeepers for the younger audience. You know, we see in the new town we're living in, we see the kind of little emo kids. You know, my wife joking that probably My Chemical Romance is dad music to them as well. And,
right.
And we just want to go over to them and give them a hug and go, oh, you're beautiful, you're lovely, it's so cute. But they think we're completely weird and like, you know, we're their parents, you know.
You're adorable. Here, take this Interpol record. Listen to it. Like,
exactly. So, but they think we're uncool for suggesting that, right? And it's you know, the generation moves on, and I kind of remain conscious of the fact that I'm in my early 40s and I've been writing about music for so long, but I know that I'm not always going to reach everyone in the scene, even in the scene that I'm in, because the younger kids are into something totally different to us. And I might listen to that and go, but that's crap. What? That's not my place to say that in many respects, because I have to accept that part of the scene will move on without me. And I'm quite happy to listen to the stuff that I'm comfortable with.
Absolutely. I think, like, you know, something that I've tried to do is like, just sort of like, you know, people argue about whether Spotify is killing music and all this stuff. But
and I've seen Jason's arguments about this, and I'm with him on a lot of what he says.
I mean, like, I think it's important to embrace these new things. Like this is the way the industry is heading, and like you're not going to fight against it. So you might as well just join in.
Totally.
And like, you know, for example, like, I don't know, I guess maybe someone in my age range, I'm considered like older for TikTok, but like, you know, Leathers does have a TikTok account, and like we are nurturing that, and we have reached younger listeners because, you know, we're embracing these different forms of media and technology and things.
We adapt or die, right?
I mean, and it's fun too. I mean, I've always been like, I don't know, I've always, as someone who grew up without the internet and then had the internet, like I've always found the internet kind of fascinating, and all these tools that arise, whether they're Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, like this stuff it's fascinating to me to like interact with these things. So yeah, I just think it's cool. Just
I think it's partly though a case of our attention spans having dropped in time. I mean, I'm of a live journal generation where we all had live journals and we all posted tons.
Yeah, me too.
But we all posted at length, right? And then Facebook came along and it was like, okay, now it's like 4 sentences. And I,
Yeah,
and I do longer posts on Facebook, but most of our posts are fairly short. And it's LiveJournal has died, and we don't use LiveJournal anymore. And it's kind of sad because often a lot of us look back in wistful eyes, going, "Oh man, do you remember those times? It was so much fun, and these ridiculous things we did."
It was so earnest. Like people were like writing about like things very like close to their hearts and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so,
and I think maybe a lot of us now, as we've got older, are maybe a little more cautious about what we post.
Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. Maybe it comes out in the music instead. I don't know. On that happy note, anyway, thank you so much for joining us, Shannon. It's been marvelous fun again, and nice to know that both of us love Depeche Mode. That's always good.
Yes, they're the best. I know I go on about them a lot, but they're my favorite. What can I say?
Well, fair. And before, as we finish, if you just want to give us your own little bit of plugging, remind us where we can buy the Leathers music in particular.
Sure. Yeah. It is leathers.bandcamp.com. You can find us on the Bandcamp. We're on Spotify just as Leathers, and Instagram is Leathers Music. Is the username on Instagram, and on TikTok if you want to follow us there too.
I must confess, I do not have a TikTok account. I have not gone down that road.
Fun, actually. We're digging it. It's been fun.
I'm kind of the curiosity in me is going to get this at some point of just that I'll log in and my wife will look at me. Why have you got a TikTok account?
Yeah.
I've got social media and everything else, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, thanks so much for joining us. And as I say, you'll be over, provided everything works out. You're over here in October, November, is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Yes, absolutely. And I will hopefully see you at those shows. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Suffer here all night. ici pour avoir un bon moment. À genoux.